This is just a compost bin, um, composting in batches, so it's filled up all in one go. This is predominantly, well, 50% wood chip, 50% brewer's waste. But I'm doing something slightly different this time. I put a sort of cover layer of just the wood chip on top, just to help retain moisture and kind of keep any sort of rodents down from eating any of the brewer's waste. Initially, though, that's not a problem at all because the wood chip does get very hot, and it's too hot for any rodents to get into there. So, but I'm doing something slightly different. I'm using these, I think they're wall barn M tray or M system green roof planters. I've just got sedums growing in here, but what I thought it would do is help to retain moisture and create almost like a microclimate underneath for worms and fungi, and it's working quite well. This material is really too hot for worms, so there aren't really any signs of worms, but you can see there's some fungus coming, and this was underneath. It's hard to see, but it's actually quite a lot darker there, and there's a lot of leaf, sort of shredded leaves from the wood chip, which are getting quite nice and black and breaking down quite well. So this is probably around about 40 degrees Celsius, so it's not hot, but it's well, it's pretty warm actually. Yeah, it's probably mid 40s, I would have thought, just on this surface layer. So it's too hot for worms, but you can see there's lots of white sort of fungi and bacteria in there. Just seeing if there's what's sort of going on really. And you can see it's sort of starting to steam now as well. There's wafts of steam coming off there. But I think, yeah, and then you're getting that slightly sort of acrid smell from the brewer's waste, so it's quite a lot of moisture in there. What I thought that would do is it stops that top layer of wood chip from, I don't know if you're going to see, but this is really quite dry. And once it gets dry like that, it's not really breaking down as fast. So it is working having those planters on that sort of, that's the spent brewer's grain, and it's sort of caked together because it's quite dry. But whereas when this is actually in this layer, just sort of delve around a little bit, you can see it's still clumped together, but it's a lot moister, not more moist, and you can see it's a slightly different colour. It doesn't smell quite so much either, so that's breaking up. And once the temperatures drop down after a few weeks, the worms will start moving in, and they really quite like that stuff. What is quite good as well, when it cakes together, it makes like almost like a slow release food for the worms, so they won't have it initially, but it maintains a source of food for quite some time. And you can just really see that bit there, that's really wet still, and that is because it was underneath that container, so it stopped it drying out. And yeah, you can smell that slightly sort of brewer's wasty smell. And that one is, yeah, you can see the difference. There's lots of bacteria and microbes and white sort of fungi in there, compared to this where it's just dry and there's not really much going on. Yeah, and that's, yeah. So it's quite a big contrast. It's working quite well, and it's very easy to achieve. But what I thought I was going to try is grow green manures, things like crimson clover and white clover, and then hopefully as they get into that layer, as it breaks down, the roots will kind of take out some of the nutrients from the compost, but then they'll when I take the containers off, they'll break the roots off and leave the root nodes in the compost, so it will sort of help boost up the sort of nitrates actually in the compost, and then hopefully the remainder of the plant I'll be able to grow elsewhere, and then it'll put the roots down further, so it will sort of give you the ability to sort of harvest the green manure without completely starting from scratch every time you want to sow. So I think that'd be quite good for sort of perennial green manures, or if you've got beds where you want to sort of alternate and almost let them lay sort of fallow for a year, but you don't want to necessarily be tied up for that many months, or however many months it takes to get the most from the green manures. And you can see where that material is moist there, you can see the mushrooms growing up through there. Nice. Yeah, so it's pretty easy to achieve. And problem with this one is I sort of set this up temporarily, and it's not really up. I've got this rodent mesh inside it, which needs to be squared up with a frame. I've got the frame, but I had the material on hand, so I sort of started it as a compost bin before I got hold of the I had the time to sort of frame it up. But yeah, I mean it's working, and what I'll do is once the temperatures drop down, I'll just put this in one of the worm beds as it is, so it won't be finished compost, but it'll be really good bedding for worms and really good food as well. So I'm just trying to crudely sort of level this off. I want to get a bit of sort of ground contact with the planters on top. Yeah, you can see all the mushrooms there. Yeah, so the contrast is quite stark really, where it's been covered over. But what I do like is when it rains, the excess of moisture will actually soak into there, so it's better than just having a roof on it. And around the outside where it's quite dry, yeah, it's hasn't broken down anywhere as near as far. Although you can see there was a few compost worms actually in that bit as well. The other thing I've done with this one as well, where around the outside of it, I'm trying to use more of this material just sort of to insulate a little bit and add a little bit more volume. But yeah, quite a straightforward sort of process, and I'll just put the foam down briefly, lift this container back on. So as I said, what I'd like to have is a bit of ground contact with that, so all the sort of soil microbes and organisms can transfer between the bottom of the tray and the drainage holes and then into that material itself. And I've got some of these containers which are cut down 25 litre containers, and these are quite nice. Didn't want to disturb this, but just for your benefit I'll just drop it on here. These are much smaller, so what you can do is you can nest these together and sort of fill in the spaces. I think they're about, yeah, 2 of those will be the same width as one of those, so it's quite nice. So then you can make a really nice attractive green sort of roof. And I'll pick up some more of those containers this week, and yeah, I'll just cover over. I think it's quite nice because you get a benefit of growing plants and enjoying it, and also having the compost underneath. And this is about 4 foot tall, just reclaimed oak floorboards. I've got the mesh in there. I've got aeration pipes, but you don't need the aeration pipes because I'm using lots of wood chip in twiggy material as well, so that holds the airspace in the heap. But yeah, it's just a different way of putting a lid on a bin, making it look attractive, and getting something else with the possibility of growing green manure cover crops as well. So it's growing on a space which otherwise would be just tied up for that amount of time, just either composting, or alternatively the same amount of space would be tied up elsewhere growing the green manures. So you're doubling up on the space, and it gives you the flexibility of being able to move those as well. So obviously you can harvest material underneath, top it up with fresh material, or what I've done in the past is I've used containers in here, so I've sort of subdivided it. So you might have half of the bin with fresh material, half the bin with material that's ready to go into worm beds and worm troughs and things like that. Thank you.